Start your day with Morning Edition and wind it down with All Things Considered, only on KPBS. From global headlines to local stories, stay informed, inspired, and connected. Tune in daily or listen anytime at kpbs.org.
Hey San Diego, it's time for KPBS Roundtable. I'm Andrew Bracken. Living in San Diego means rooting for our local sports teams through thick and thin. It's the midpoint of the season for the Padres, San Diego FC, and the Wave. Our favorite teams are getting a report card.
Now, to me, the question, I guess, and maybe the story of the first half is, who are the real San Diego Padres? Is it the team that we saw in April and early May, or is it the team that we've seen here in the last month?
Also, what are some players we should be watching for? And we take a closer look into sports fan culture in San Diego. That's all ahead on KPBS Roundtable. First, the news. San Diego Padres beat the Arizona Diamondbacks 4-3 Thursday night behind home runs from All-Stars Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. The Padres are now 50-43, but in third place in their division and hovering near a wild card spot for the playoffs, though a lot more baseball is still to come this season. We thought it'd be a good time to check in on how the team is doing as it enters next week's All-Star break. Joining me to do that is Derek Togerson. He's a sports anchor with NBC7 San Diego. Also, Ryan Finley is here. He is the sports editor with the San Diego Union Tribune. I want to welcome both of you to Roundtable. So the Padres, they have one last homestand this weekend before that All-Star break. They're playing the Phillies here at Petco. But regardless of how that series goes, the team enters the break with a winning record. Not at the top of their division, though. So I want to start by getting each of your thoughts on how the season is going. Derek, what's the headline you have for the Padres' first half of their 2025 season?
Oh, gosh. Well, thanks for having me on. And I always enjoy doing this stuff. I think mine would probably be Padres overachieve. You look at the number of injuries that they've had to deal with. You look at all the different guys who have been impact players who've had to come up and down, how many bullpen arms they've had to use, and the fact that they are sitting 7 games over 500 with 3 games before the All-Star break, especially when you given the fact that Mike Schilt's teams historically have been much better in the second half of the season than they have in the first half. I mean, look no further than last year when they were 50-50 and ended up winning 93 games. I think they're ahead of schedule, and given the adversity they've had to deal with, including so many of their stars having prolonged slumps at different times, I'm actually really encouraged by what I've seen so far, because the superstars can't stay this mired in funks for as long as they have been for an entire season, and these teams tend to get better as the year go on. I'm very encouraged, overachieving Padres in the first half.
So, Ryan, you heard some optimism from Derek there, pointing to, how last season went. What grade would you give the team at this point?
Man, it's hard. In baseball, it's so easy to just look at the last 2 weeks or a month and say, man, this is a middling team. This is a 500 baseball team. But how easily and how soon we forget their first month of the season. It was I think it was the best or second best start in the history of the San Diego Padres. Their superstars were playing like superstars. They were getting great pitching. They very much looked like not only a playoff team, but a team that could make a deep run. To me, the question, I guess, and maybe the story of the first half is, who are the real San Diego Padres? Is it the team that we saw in April and early May, or is it the team that we've seen here in the last month, which is talented, yes, certainly plays baseball the right way, is doing a lot of good things, but maybe too flawed to be a truly good to great team in Major League Baseball. At this point, who are they? I can't really tell you. I'm not sure.
One thing that the team has gotten criticized for is just the offensive production, right? I mean, Derek, what can you tell us about the team's struggles at the plate, and what gives you, optimism that they can turn things around in the second half?
The struggles at the plate. I mean, I heard a stat that Jesse Agler had on the radio last night, and it was something that was incredibly stark when he said that over the last 50 games, the Padres have failed to score at least 3 runs in half of them, 25 of those games. And if you'd have told me in spring training that was the case, I would have said, you're out of your mind. This team is far too deep. They have far too many weapons. But that's the reality of it. And I think the thing that we've seen here is they don't have enough slug, meaning they don't have that guy who can put the ball out of the ballpark at any given moment and get you a few runs on the board. And then when they don't have that guy, they have to rely on a lot of hits in a row. They have to have those long, prolonged rallies, which we've seen this team be able to do, but they have to have that single, double walk, single, double walk. They have to have those kinds of rallies to truly start generating, big innings and a lot of high run totals. And that's what's been missing is the consistency. We talk about runners in scoring position. They're getting plenty of guys on base. They're getting plenty of guys in scoring position, but that's when the rally stops. I mean, even the superstars, Manny Machado, the active major league leader in career grand slams, has had multiple opportunities of runners on base, even with the bases loaded, and has failed to get the job done in those situations. And you can't expect a guy to do it every time, but they're not getting that hit when they need to get that hit. And that was a hallmark of this team last year and even early this season. So if they can find a way to either find a guy at the trade deadline to come in and give them that slug who can, end a game for you with one swing of the bat, as the old saying goes, or find a way to get some more consistency up and down the lineup, then the offense will be okay. What we see right now is simply lack of consistency and lack of slug. They can probably fix those things. And it's good that we can actually identify what the issue is. If you can identify what the issue is, then you can go about addressing and fixing the issue.
I think you mentioned injuries earlier. Ryan, I'm wondering if you can kind of dig into some of the injury stories. We saw Yu Darvish, an important piece to the pitching rotation of the Padres, return recently. What's your take on the state of injuries, and will the second half hopefully bring better things to come for the team?
Yeah, I think the first half of the season has been marked by injuries to three key players, right? Yu Darvish did not pitch in mid-March, said, hey, there's something up with my elbow, really took it slow getting back, and then made his debut on Monday, his first appearance as a Padre in 2025. He's due to start again Friday night. Yu Darvish appears to be back. His velocity looks pretty good. He threw, 7 or 8 different pitches in his first game back. I think that it's fair to say that Yu Darvish, you can pencil him into the rotation going forward, which is good. Michael King has a nerve issue in his shoulder, and something that's kept him out nearly 2 months, and will keep him out at least another 3-4 weeks probably. Things are trending in the right direction there. When he's healthy, Michael King is, at least in my opinion, their best starting pitcher. So the Padres would add him back, which is great. One of the things, and when we talk about injuries, it's nothing we've really dwelled on too much, but Jackson Merrill's had a rough first half of this season. He was, their best player through the first week or two of the 2025 season. Then he suffered a hamstring injury. Then he got a concussion stealing second base in Phoenix. Got tagged sort of up around the head and missed a week there. He's come back and he has really struggled since his return from that concussion list. If Yu Darvish, Michael King, and Jackson Merrill can return to sort of the numbers on the backs of their baseball cards, I think the Padres should be in really good shape. The question is, can they all come back and start producing in time for the Padres really to make a surge? We saw last year, the second half of the season was when the Padres really turned it on, put together one of the best halves they've ever had as an organization. I think that there's some hope internally that they have that in them again, that they can make that run again. But I think it's going to require their superstars playing like superstars, their injured players coming back and being just as good as they were beforehand, and probably adding a bat and a pitcher here at the trade deadline. This team, and they show it night in and night out, has just a shocking lack of depth. Their bench is not particularly accomplished, and they're going to need more hitters, more big league hitters on this team if they're going to make a push to not only make the playoffs, but go deep.
Derek, Ryan there, talked about some of the challenges that Jackson Merrill has faced this year after just, the breakout season last season. But he's not the only Padre that's, been disappointing for Padre fans so far this season, right?
No, definitely not. And I actually talked to Mike Schilt just yesterday, and we taped this on Friday morning. But I was talking to Schilt yesterday about Jackson Merrill, who, by the way, Jackson now 3 for 32 in the month of July. And the point that was made was this is the first time he's ever struggled on a baseball field in his life, not his career, in his life. He had never had to have struggles in the minor leagues, never had to have struggles in high school, never had to have struggles, obviously, in Little League, all the way back to T-ball. He's had success. So Schulte called it, quote, a birthright. Every baseball player at some point in their life and their career goes through a point where the game says, all right, I'm going to test you. And this is the test for Jackson Merrill. The thing is, he's just turned 22 years old this April. So he's going through that test in front of everyone after having a year where he probably should have been named the Rookie of the Year in the National League. So we're seeing him go through this in real time. And everyone in that organization, I mean, I've talked to players around Jackson, I've talked to Jackson himself, they all believe this is temporary. So he's going to come back and be fine. I think the bigger concern is probably with a guy like Xander Bogaerts, who has run into a lot of bad luck. I mean, he hit a ball on Sunday. I was at the game. It went 102 miles an hour off the bat at a 31-degree launch angle. The bases were loaded. That ball, according to Baseball Savant, is a home run 64% of the time, and it's a base hit over 80% of the time. And it was a fly out to the warning track. So Xander's just run into a gust from the gods at Petco Park, whatever it is. He's run into some really bad luck. But the fact the ball's not flying out of the ballpark nearly as consistently for him, I think, is still concerning. Manny, I'm not worried about. Toddy is thank God, healthy. He's got to get out of his own head. I still think the production for him, he's going to come in. And Greg Garcia, former Padre, said he believes home runs come in bunches. So Toddy, again, he hit one on Thursday night that was an absolute missile out to center field. If he can start finding one of those grooves, like the first month of the year, he had 8 home runs. He's had 6 since then. If he can have another one of those 8 home run months, and bam, they're right back into doing what they're doing. And you know the talent's in there. The guy's 26 years old. So I think the bigger concern is with a guy like a Xander Bogaerts, or the lack of consistency from Fernando Tatis Jr., even a guy like Luis Ariz not swinging like the 3-time batting champion that we've seen. Thank God for Gavin Sheets getting some kind of pop to this lineup. So it's not so much a concern from a guy like Merrill, who is going to figure it out eventually. I think you're talking about a guy like Bogaerts, who at 32 years old, you're going, man, maybe Father Time got with him early, which is weird because the guy's built like an NFL safety. You'd figure the ball would fly off his back consistently, but he's been dinged up. He's played a lot of baseball games. Maybe he's just worn down. You just don't know.
So, talking about some of the challenges this season, I want to turn to some of the favorite moments from the year. I think probably near the top of most Padre fans' favorite moments came pretty recently, and that was Manny Machado with his 2000th career hit. Ryan, what can you tell us about Manny Machado and what he's meant to the Padres since he came after kind of, a complicated career with some other clubs, including the Dodgers, right?
Yeah, yes. And, Manny Machado was sort of the first. People are going to talk about Eric Hosmer signing with the Padres years ago and how that sort of legitimized them, right? But Manny Machado was a superstar who chose San Diego. And, I think for all of the drama that surrounded him early in his career, the fact that Manny chose San Diego, I think is why there's this bond here between him and fans. And Manny Machado is a bona fide star. I think he's a future Hall of Famer. I'm not sure it's even much of a conversation. And he's a guy who, if he keeps hitting anywhere near the clip he's been hitting at, he'll get his 3,000th hit, and he'll likely get it as a San Diego Padre. Him getting his 2,000th hit, on Monday, I was there Monday night. As somebody who grew up in San Diego, was in the stands the night Tony Gwynn got 2,000, was watching on TV the night Tony Gwynn got 3,000. I think that maybe San Diego fans are a little bit more appreciative of just how hard it is to get those sort of milestones, like Manny Machado's 2000th hit. And, kind of like Tony Gwynn the night he got 3,000. It wasn't just that he got 3,000. It's that I think he then got 3 more hits that day. Manny Machado gets 2,000 early in Monday night's game, and then turns around and belts a home run later in the game, and has been on a little bit of a heater ever since. Manny Machado, I would argue at this point, is the second greatest Padre of all time. And as much as sort of the Tony Gwynn fans in San Diego would probably blanch at this, I think if Manny Machado continues playing at this level through the end of his contract with the Padres, we could talk about him being 1 or maybe 1B in terms of the greatest Padres of all time. He's that special of a player.
We've seen Manny Machado really kind of embed himself in the culture of San Diego. We're going to talk a little in just a couple minutes about San Diego FC, of which he's quite been involved. You've seen him at games, and he's involved with that franchise as well. So finishing up on the Padres here, I think as you mentioned, baseball's trade deadline comes to the end of this month. What does the team need most heading to the second half of the season?
It's just my opinion here, but I think they need a right-handed bat. I don't know if that person necessarily has to be a left fielder. One of the things that we've seen with Gavin Sheets, who has been one of the great stories of the first half of this season, they sort of signed him off the street just ahead of spring training. He looks the part, big, strong kid, but somebody who hasn't really developed into a power hitter during his career has really taken off this season. And then they say, hey, go play left field. And, after a really rough month or so, it seems like he's settling in there. So maybe they don't need necessarily a left fielder, but I think they need a right-handed bat somewhere. Somebody who can hit home runs, somebody who scares people. So that's number one. Number two, I think they need a catcher. I'm not sure what they're willing to give up to acquire a catcher, but the Martin Maldonado, Elias Diaz combination, I don't think that that's a winning combination for a team that plans to go deep into October. And then I think pitching. We look at what the Padres did last year at the trade deadline. Nobody talks about how important it was that they had Martin Perez there the last couple months of the season to eat innings. He was really good during the regular season for them too. It doesn't have to be a superstar pitcher, but getting another veteran arm either into that rotation or as a swingman, I think will go a long way and guard against, what if Yu Darvish struggles, or what if Yu Darvish re-aggravates something? What if Michael King is too slow coming back? You need a little insurance there, and I think a veteran pitcher would provide some of that.
When Roundtable returns from the baseball diamond to the soccer pitch, we check in on the state of San Diego soccer teams, San Diego FC and San Diego Wave. Stay tuned. Roundtable's back after the break. Welcome back to KPBS Roundtable. I'm Andrew Bracken. Today, we're taking a closer look at San Diego sports, and we shift now from baseball to soccer to talk about San Diego FC and the Wave. Again, I'm joined by the Union Tribune's Ryan Finley, along with Derek Togerson from NBC7 San Diego. We're also joined now by Tony Sanchez. He's the co-founder of San Diego.Football. So, Tony, I want to start with you. Like the Padres, San Diego FC, they're just about their midpoint this season. How would you characterize them, about the first half of their first ever season?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And I can say for San Diego FC and everybody who's paying attention to what they've been doing in this inaugural season, it's nothing more than just spectacular and really just fulfilling the ambitions that were inlaid before they began the season. And for San Diego FC, on all marks and all standards across what's been established as what an expansion team should have as their expectation, they've been able to really just exceed those expectations and just bring a new ceiling to what it can be possible for a new team in this league to be. And honestly, a potential to revolutionize the sport of soccer in the nation.
Ryan, San Diego FC is tops of their conference. How surprising is that to you at this point? I think we talked, right as the season kicked off, and there was just a lot of questions of what the team, again, expansion team first season, what it would look like. How surprised are you with their performance thus far?
I have been surprised. The last time we talked, I think we discussed, what would be important in year one wasn't necessarily wins and losses, but it was more playing entertaining soccer, engaging the fan base, growing the fan base, right? Well, shoot, they've managed to do all of that while also winning. They're now atop the 15-team Western Conference standings in Major League Soccer. They've done it with an attacking, exciting style of play. They've done it with contributions from all over. There are so many great storylines on this team through the first half of their season. It's better than I'm sure even they would have hoped for. They're playing great. They're getting production from all over, and they're this close, guys, to smashing records for most successful expansion team in Major League Soccer history. This is a club that can make a deep run into the playoffs, and this is a club that has been just a ringing success in the in terms of at the gate, in the stands. in the community, and then, of course, on the soccer field and in the standings. It's just been amazing to see.
Derek, what about you? This is the first time, obviously, covering MLS in San Diego. There's been talk for years about it. What has that experience been like covering this team?
It's been actually really interesting. And I was actually out of practice yesterday before they flew out to Chicago to face a Fire this weekend. I think what you've seen in Major League Soccer is the last few years, expansion teams have found a way to be really good really fast. Just 2 years ago, St. Louis City FC won the Western Conference. They're the number one seed, and then they flamed out with a first round playoff loss. You've seen LAFC in their first year went to the playoffs. So a lot of teams recently have joined the league and had some level of success, but only one playoff team has actually won a playoff game. Forgetting about the Chicago Fire back in 1998 when they were an expansion team and won the MLS Cup. That was the third year of Major League Soccer. I think 3 or 4 teams folded that year. It was a wild west. It was a very funky time for Major League Soccer. So I think we can throw that one out and kind of go maybe like the modern era.
A lot of less teams then, too, right? Now it's like 30 teams in the MLS.
I think there were 12 teams in the league, something along those lines. And now you're talking about 30 plus. Much more difficult nowadays. What gives me hope about San Diego FC is what they've been able to do in building an identity. And Ryan, you said it perfectly. You said building, playing exciting soccer. And Tony, I know you're out of practice. I see you there quite a bit as well, so you can speak to this as well. But they've got an identity. And when you take a team that got together literally in February, and they still added pieces here and there as they've gone, to put them all into a system with a coach in Mikey Varas, who has never been a coach at a professional level ever, at any professional level. He's never been a head coach. To get all these guys on the same page and show you week in and week out, this is the team we are. This is the kind of soccer we're going to play. As Mikey says, we're going to be bold on the ball. To instill that and make sure the team is what they are on a week in, week out basis has been truly remarkable, because to get so many guys from different systems, I know Right to Dream has something to do with this, but from different places, they got guys from 13, 14 different countries speaking multiple different languages. To get them all on the same page so quickly and assimilate into the style of soccer they want to play, that's been the remarkable thing. So, sporting director Tyler Heaps, I think, deserves a massive amount of credits, although he's kind of sticking behind the scenes, or he's more comfortable, for the kind of guys that he got to come in here that fit not only from a system standpoint, but a personality standpoint has been truly incredible.
So with that, the success that San Diego FC has been able to really just have initially here is because they've had a blueprint almost for everything in this inaugural season. You're talking about the system that's been inlaid, the Right to Dream system, which Right to Dream being the project that is unilaterally connecting every aspect of this club, whether it's on the field development for the future, whether it's play style, whether it's the players themselves. The captain of this team, Yepes Verskov, is in the 99th percentile for a lot of stats in the MLS and leading in MLS, but you don't see him as that household name like Minali Loski or Chucky Lozano or Anders Dreyer. If you're looking at the game, it's really just being able to imprint the DNA of other teams already established through the Right to Dream model, that being FC Norseland over in Norway. So this is some of the things that San Diego FC has been able to already have a head start in, where they have the players, they put the pieces together. And like Derek was saying, it's just incredible how fast these players were able to assimilate to that. They were 3 weeks into meeting each other when they had their first victory up in LA against the reigning defending champions, and really just kind of had that cohesiveness right out the gate. So in soccer, that's incredibly important, where sometimes individual talent of players get superseded by good team play. And that's what San Diego FC has, and they have the fight. So once again, that ambition that San Diego FC and company with Tyler Heaps, Mikey Varas, and Tom Penn wanted to have a competitive team initially, they're having that and more. Now they're the talk of the entire league.
And Ryan, amongst the players, kind of leading the way here, yes, there's a couple stars. Anders Dreyer, Irving Chucky Lozano was like kind of the big signing, but also a local product from Escondido, Milan Ilaski. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he's from Escondido. After high school, went and played at UCLA, where he was very good. Left UCLA early to turn pro, and really struggled early on in the MLS system. Played mostly, with their high minors. affiliates, and then got released and ended up in Orange County playing for a USL championship club, and just tore it up there. Played really well, and became their franchise's all-time leading scorer. Was able to play alongside his brother, which I think was cool for him, and then went overseas and ended up signing with San Diego FC's sister club. Early in San Diego FC season, Marcus Ingvartsen gets hurt. They need a forward. They need some scoring punch. They contact their sister club, and Milan Ilaski gets loaned to his hometown team, San Diego FC, and it's just taken off. Somebody who, again, probably wasn't on anybody's radar at the start of the season, is now one of their most exciting offensive players. And the fact that he's local, it probably shouldn't matter. But San Diegans love cheering for San Diegans, and he's become a fan favorite early on here. It will be interesting to me to see how much he plays and what his production is like with Ingvartsen fully healthy and with this team pushing for a playoff spot. Very curious to see sort of where he fits in going forward, but that is what we call a good problem to have. If you have too many talented players, you're probably doing it right.
Tony, I mean, what can you tell us about the roster and some of the other players playing a key role in their success so far?
Well, with this system, it's important to have somebody who's established and is able to bring some calm and veteran presence throughout. And every one of the thirds of this team has somebody there. Even going back to goalkeeper CJ Dos Santos, who was an unproven MLS backup keeper with Miami, who had a lot of questions coming in, and now is one of the leaders in MLS with clean sheets. And moving on forward, you have players who really you didn't expect, much like Ryan was talking about Milan. Nobody expected Chris McVeigh to come over and become a stalwart defender for this team and be granted an extension already into 2028. You go into the midfield, you have Anibal Godoy, who is a Grizzly veteran of MLS, who brings that presence, who is going to be a rotation player, has cemented and established himself and found new life, the fountain of youth, alongside the captain, center mid, Yepes Verskov. And then you have other great talents throughout, just sparse with Luca La Torre, also being a local product in under similar conditions with Milan Iloski. They're loaned. Essentially, they're being borrowed for the season. At some point, they have to go back to their parent club. However, both of them have an option to stay here in San Diego and be purchased in their contract. And then again, you go up through the final third in attack, and you have this revelation of MLS, somebody who's touted right now number one to be MVP of the entire league in Anders Dreyer, who talk about a bargain. Anders Dreyer was purchased here for $5 million. He was one of those players that Tyler Heaps couldn't believe that he had got for such a bargain, and not only that he got for such a bargain, that he agreed to come in his prime here to MLS, that is traditionally seen as a retirement league or something that Europeans come over after just to collect a paycheck. Anders Dryers came in and is in his prime and is definitely taking this league by storm.
So, Tony, I think if there's been criticism around SDFC, it hasn't been about the team, or the product, the players, but more about just how soccer culture has been, becoming part of the San Diego sports scene. I think you've kind of referred to them as growing pains that this club has gone through this season. I'm wondering if you can dig more into that. Started off the season, there were these homophobic chants that happened, the opening home match, their first home match. Then there was fights that happened at Snapdragon Stadium between a couple supporter groups. Break that down for us. Where do you think that is now, and how has the team responded to those controversies?
Yeah, much like I said, there was a blueprint with the style of play and everything. There's a blueprint for this too. For the homophobic chant, they took exactly what Tom Penn did when in his time in LAFC, and so essentially what ended up happening in LAFC, which happened in San Diego FC, is right immediately after the match, the manager Mike Ibarras came in to the press conference post match. Before any questions were asked, he addressed and made sure that it was understood that this is not what the team stands for, and it's not what they're going to go ahead and be known for. And also the fact that it was not the official supporter group initiating those chants. And then again, it's that accountability factor that Mike Varas and the club are definitely ushering in, as well as similar steps in order to face future times in need of contingencies. They took the LAFC model to do that. Now, with when it comes to the altercations and the fights, that's something that again potentially could have been a little bit more proactive by the club, but unless it happens, then you're not necessarily prepared with the full extent of what you needed. And so I think now the growing pains are exactly that. There are situations where you're finding yourself just discovering throughout where it's a matter of conversation. It's a matter of identifying and weeding those things out. Because again, there's not necessarily a space for violence in anywhere, but let alone in the stands in the third level of a Snapdragon Stadium. But here is where this is where San Diego FC could have been a little bit more proactive about things. That there was obviously this energy that's filling, and it's definitely something that the club is embracing by allowing. Hey, we're going to go ahead and allow every sort of supporter. We're going to allow every sort of hincha banda. That's the supporter ultra style from South America, and try to mix it with the U.S. There's growing pains with that. And with that, the union, the Supporters Union Frontera San Diego, made up of 7 individual supporter groups, all have different ways of supporting. And so at the end of the day, they all need to come together and coalesce under what the MLS guidelines are. And conversations have been happening, being positive, but there's a clear delineation of where SDFC, the club, is, and the Independent Supporters Union are. And there's going to be different times those crossover. And we've had certain instances of that. But so far, I think this family that they've created is connected enough and is strong enough to now continue forward, and they've been weathering the storm through.
After the break, it was supposed to be a rebuilding year for the San Diego Wave FC. How they're finding success and surprising a lot of folks this season. That's ahead on Roundtable. Welcome back to KPBS Roundtable. I'm Andrew Bracken. Today on the show, we're checking in on some of San Diego's most popular sports teams. We've been talking about the Padres, talked about San Diego FC. Now it's time to talk about the Wave. Again, I'm joined by Derek Togerson from NBC7 San Diego, along with the Union Tribune's Ryan Finley and Tony Sanchez, co-founder of San Diego.Football. So, moving on to the Wave now, I guess the headline for their season might be something like The New Wave. Derek, does that work for you?
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, it was a whole musical thing. It was a whole style thing. And it certainly applies to the soccer thing, because how do you go from having arguably the most recognizable women's soccer player on earth in Alex Morgan retiring, sending away the consensus best defensive player, mid center back on earth, and Naomi Girma, sending her overseas, and trading away another U.S. women's national team member in Jaden Shaw, who was one of your more dynamic frontline scoring options, starting at one point 3 17-year-olds in the same lineup, which no National Women's Soccer League team had ever done, and get better. They have jumped up to 3rd, 4th in the National Women's Soccer League standings. They have become an absolute joy to watch. So we thought it was going to be a rebuild. Well, I don't know which Home Depot they went to find all these products, because this rebuild did not last. It lasted about 25 minutes. This is a really, really good soccer club. And Jonas Eidevall, the head coach, again, the same kind of thing that Mikey has done. He took all these pieces that maybe we don't know much about, but we're learning are pretty good soccer players, gave them an identity, and has turned them loose, and they are getting better week in and week out. It's just remarkable what they've been able to do as well in playing a really quality, high energy attacking style of soccer that we love down here in San Diego.
Tony, I mean, I don't have, a lot of absolutes when following sports teams. One of them is when you lose your best players, when they lost Naomi Girma, when you lose your most legendary player, Alex Morgan, retired. How did this team get better this season?
It really goes back to what soccer is. Once again, it's that team aspect. And one thing that this San Diego Wave squad has is that they are a united front, and they bought into Jonas Eidevall's proposal of this new style of play and taking everything with deliberate intention. And that goes down to training. You don't just train conditioning. You don't just train set pieces. You have to take it step back. Sometimes you need to go ahead and train a throw-in. and what the strategy is in those moments. And Jonas Seideval came in with that mentality, and there was a buy-in for players who are here under Landon Donovan, under Casey Stoney, under the turbulence of last year, that they needed that leaf to be turned. And so Jonas Seideval was able to provide that alongside what it's called, and he called it the new wave. We actually call it the new French connection, because that's exactly what it's been. Pearl Maroney, Ken Zadali, and Cascarino, the French players, have legitimately taking this team and elevated it to a different level. When I say if you want to have a player to just watch, if you're watching San Diego Wave game, watch the way number 10 plays. The French player Ken Zadali is the closest thing that I've seen in NWSL to a Zinedine Zidane. Just the presence that she carries upon herself. Everybody looks to where that player is, and having those trusting moments with 17-year-olds that you're mentioning is, again, something that takes years to form, but it took a couple of weeks, a couple of months under this basic style for Jonas Seideval, that he said, hey, I'm going to go with the pillars of we need to be fit. We need to make sure we're detail oriented, and we need to make sure that we are aggressive and have a winning mentality. And each of these is exactly why San Diego Wave is in third place. And honestly, I don't think we've seen the best of San Diego Wave, so much so that they were able to let go one of their superstars in Maria Sanchez to Tigres over in a Mexican team in Liga MX Femenil, and say, we don't need her right now because the team is so strong. She just doesn't fit this. And instead of having somebody just have them rotting on the bench that's not going to be part of the system, let's go ahead and give them the opportunity. We're going to be fine. So San Diego Wave is in an excellent position. Many parallels to their season with San Diego FC.
And Ryan, younger players here are a key component of this team. A couple teenagers, including another San Diegan, Melanie Barcenas. How is she doing this season, as well as the other teenager?
They've been great. I mean, she has been fantastic. She's somebody who, if you go on Instagram or if you just even go on YouTube, Google her, watch some of her highlights. Melanie Barcenas, what she's able to do with the ball is incredible. She's still very young, right? 17. Then you've got Trinity Armstrong, who they just signed last offseason after 1 year of college. She's been fantastic. And then Kimi Ascanio, who I think, maybe not enough gets talked about her and what she's been able to do on the field. All three, it's a nice core. I want to really emphasize how rare it is to do what they've done and be as successful as they've been. Like, let's compare it to this. Let's say tomorrow, Manny Machado said, hey, I'm retiring. And then during the offseason, the Padres traded Fernando Tatis Jr. and Joe Musgrove and decided that they were going to replace them with 18-year-olds, right? Then, midway through this season, they went, Xander Bogaerts, we really don't need you, so why don't you go play over there? And they just sold Xander Bogaerts to somebody else. And they were much better after the fact. To me, that's what's so amazing. It's that they've managed to get rid of their most recognizable players, and yet the sum of their parts is so much better than what we watched last year. I mean, last year's Wave team, let's be honest, they were boring and they were bad. This year's team is exciting, number one, successful, number two, and given sort of their relative youth and given their style of play, I think there's every reason to believe that this is something that can be sustainable year to year. I don't think a whole lot of Wave players are going to, get transferred to England the way Naomi Gurma did. I think this is a team that can stay together, a core that can stay together for years and try to get that first ever championship that we thought was coming, 2 years ago and 3 years ago and never materialized.
So the Wave, they're on an international break. Again, they're third place in the league. They're on a break until early August, and their next home match will be Saturday, August 9th. So more to follow there. As we kind of wrap up here, each of the teams we've been talking about have really connected, I think, with San Diego sports fans, each in their own unique ways. But, I mean, the Padres, as of last night, they have the second highest total home attendance in Major League Baseball. You can guess who's number one there. The Dodgers. We've talked about the popularity of San Diego FC and how they've really connected to the community here. And San Diego Wave. I mean, I think Derek, you can talk more about this, but I think they've seen a little bit of a dip in attendance so far this season, but they're still amongst higher attendance levels in the NWSL. So I wanted to get your thoughts as we close out here. What ingredients do you think are involved in getting San Diego fans bought in here, Derek?
Man, to get them bought, this is the thing that I've learned in 20 years of being in San Diego. And this is something that, and I hate to, bring up the name of the nasty, but the Dean Spanos never truly understood was if you show San Diego sports fans that you are trying, San Diego sports fans will buy into you. That's why when Peter Seidler showed up and said, you know what, we're not going to operate like a small market team. We are going to invest in this club. When you invest in the club and show everyone in San Diego, yes, we might not win a championship, but darn it, we are emptying our barrel trying to do it. We're going to leave no stone unturned. We are trying to give you something that you will be proud of. San Diego sports fans will come out en masse and support you if you show that you are doing that. So when you do that, you are going to have fans. And that's what San Diego FC has done. They have said, listen, we are going to build a brand new state-of-the-art practice facility here in the East County. We are going to go out and spend money on players. We are going to give you a good game day experience. San Diego Wave FC says, listen, this collection of players wasn't working. We're going to tear it down to the studs and start trying something different, but we're not going to stop spending maybe as much money. We're going to show you that we're going to put it into different places and try to get you something that you can be proud of. So that's what I've seen with all of these clubs is they have shown that they're invested in bringing a title to San Diego. And San Diego has in turn said, thank you. We got your back. We're going to show up and give you everything we have.
And I think that they play well together. All three organizations seem to do a pretty good job of supporting each other.
Yes.
Whether it's Alex Morgan out at Padre games, right? I mean, we've seen her a bunch since she retired. Whether it's Manny Machado, who's a part owner of San Diego FC, bringing almost all of his teammates to their first ever home game, right? And having them sit in the box. Whether it, these teams seem to all kind of be pulling together in the right direction. And that's something that never happened with the Padres and Chargers. Something that, they were competing, it seemed, for entertainment dollars. And I think that all three of these teams have sort of not only their own fan bases, but their own niches in that they're really not fighting with each other for this stuff. They're all working together. And the fact that they're all having success this year, I think helps too. It's been a pretty memorable 4 months or so for San Diego sports, and very excited to see what the rest of the summer and the fall brings.
Like the saying goes, a rising tide raises all ships. Everybody can play off of one another.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's also kind of cool that their seasons are all kind of around the same time. Playoff time is going to kind of hit for each of these teams, should they make it, hopefully, around the same time this fall. Tony, you and your co-host Alejandro, you kind of have a real unique pulse into San Diego soccer culture. What has surprised you the most about soccer culture, soccer fandom in San Diego as you've seen it grow over the past few years?
For the beginning stages of it, I thought that soccer in San Diego would just be this one melting pot of everybody together. But the fan bases between San Diego Wave and San Diego FC are actually rather mutually exclusive. And I think that's where San Diego Wave has found their consistent fan base that's going to be loyal, that's going to go ahead and be there after the worst season that they can possibly have on and off the field. They're going to go ahead and still garner that attention. For San Diego FC as well, they've been able to maintain, and they've been able to tap into something that other soccer teams here in MLS weren't able to do, which is tap into the Latino market. And something in general too, as well, as the community of San Diego likes to be reflected, especially when it's being told that San Diego's this fantastic place for talent and soccer. It's one of the best cities in the country for it. FIFA ratings are always the highest in the city. And so when the San Diego soccer community has that in mind, and now it's reflected on the professional level, that's when they'll give you that respect. And in the community work that Alejandro Chiva and I do here in the South Bay community is we work with kids. And you're starting to see kids start to form their heroes when they're playing soccer, when they're playing much like when they would play baseball and they'd say, okay, well, I'm Trevor Hoffman. Well, okay, well, I'm Tony Gwynn and I'm at bat. That's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Now you're starting to see, oh, I'm going to take this penalty. I'm Anders Dreyer. I'm Milan Linoski. And on the other side, conversely, for San Diego Wave, you see little girls with books and binders of soccer baseball cards, and they know the back of the card stats. They'll come up to you and tell you, oh, actually Ken Zadali came over from this team and had this many assists and this. So this level of fandom is there, and it's just really cool to be able to see this now be able to manifest and have a direction to go. And the direction isn't outside of San Diego, it's coming inwards to San Diego, and now it's time for them to go ahead and grow it together with the clubs and the community.
Well, that's great to hear. And hopefully, we'll talk more about these teams as we get into fall, hopefully. I've been speaking with Tony Sanchez. He's the co-founder of San Diego.football. You can find them on YouTube, along with Derek Togerson. He's a sports anchor with NBC7 San Diego. And Ryan Finley has also been joining us. He's the sports editor for the San Diego Union Tribune. I want to thank you all for joining us on Roundtable this week. It's been great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Always good to join you guys.
Thank you. Anytime.
That'll do it for KPBS Roundtable this week. Thanks so much for listening. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen to our show anytime as a podcast. KPBS Roundtable airs on KPBS FM at noon on Fridays, again Sundays at 6 a.m. If you have any thoughts on today's show, you can always email us at roundtable@kpbs.org. You can also leave us a message at 619-452-0228. Roundtable's technical producers this week were Brandon Trufa and Ben Redlosk. Show was produced by Ashley Rush. Brooke Ruth is Roundtable's senior producer. I'm your host, Andrew Bracken. Thanks again for listening, and have a great weekend.
Stay connected to the world around you. KPBS brings you trusted news, compelling stories, and in-depth reporting every day. Wherever life takes you, KPBS is here, on the radio, online, and on the go. Discover more at kpbs.org.